Welcome out to the show tonight, guys. This is Studio 321. It's your host, Eddie B. What's up, guys? Good to be back. Been away from podcasting for a little while, man. Had to clear my brain, but I'm back, and I'm happy to be here. It's good to see you all. So, tonight I want to talk about two things. There was the pardoning of the ex-president from Honduras. I think his name was Juan. Was it Juan Hernandez, Orlando, or something like that? Or Juan Orlando Hernandez, yes, excuse me. He was the ex-Honduran president that was running drugs and got busted, arrested in the United States. I think he got like 40 years in prison. Trump pardoned him. That's one of the things we're going to talk about tonight. Also, we're going to talk about the narco boats that are getting sunk off the coast of South and Central America. The Dems are going crazy over it. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But first, guys, if you like my channel, please like and subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, man. We got to, like-minded people got to stick together, and that's how we spread the word. But anyway, so let's get started, guys. So Juan Orlando Hernandez, ex-president of Honduras, kind of in the same type of situation Maduro's in Venezuela, right? Basically was a known drug dealer. He was a leader of the country down there, but he was involved in a lot of the cartel stuff. They unseated him, they busted him, and, he was arrested. I think he was tried in the United States and got a 40-year sentence. So he was in prison here, and he was just pardoned by Trump. So obviously, Trump does that. The left's going crazy. But to be completely honest, I was watching that and going to myself, I was like, man, that's kind of weird. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Why he would do something like that, right? I mean, the guy obviously was a drug candidate. Everybody knows that. Served 40 years in the United States. So, obviously, obvious to me, when Trump does something weird like that, there's always a way bigger story behind it. But, of course, the news is never going to tell you that, right? So I started doing some digging. I was reading a bunch of articles, this and that. And this is what I come up with. So there is an election going on in Honduras, okay? It's between basically a lefty candidate down there who they say, and who knows about all this, but they say he's kind of pro-China, was buddying up to them as far as trade and talking to them about stuff, like basically kind of hitching the wagon to them, if you know what I mean. And then there was a pro-America candidate. Well, the pro-American candidate is in the same party that Juan Hernandez comes from, the one that was in prison. And the election, from what I understand, was very close. It was it was like neck and neck. Nobody knew who was going to win, and the United States was a little bit nervous, thinking that you're going to get some pro-China lefty down there as the leader of the country. And so at that point, what Trump's going to do, right? He's going to try to influence the election, of course. Now, one thing I couldn't find, I couldn't find what exactly pardoning him would do. But from what they said was that it would spring his party down there and motivate them to vote for the pro-American candidate, right? But see, Trump can't come out and say that to the American public, because if he comes out and says that, that's influencing a foreign election, right? It's kind of a no-no. So what does he do? He pardons him, says, yeah, Joe Biden's administration was hard on him. It was fake. It was, it was all bull. But the truth is, that's not the reason why. The Joe Biden thing was a cover. Basically, they're doing it for geopolitics. They want... and I've known this for some time, and I did a show about 7 months ago on this, talking about trying to get the Chinese out of Panama, which they did. Trump has been successful on that. But, we don't, as a country, and, his administration especially, does not want China allied with anybody in South or Central America. Okay, that's bad for us. It's not on our border, but in a way it is on our border. It's one of our satellite countries, and we just can't have that type of influence on, anywhere in Central or South America. So they really want this pro-American candidate to win. They're obviously saying that he'll sell us a lot of oil, that we can do a lot of business together. Which, look, I understand. That's geopolitics. You want good neighbors. You don't want people that disagree with you are going to cause problems politically or anything like that. So that looks to me like the reason why he pardoned him. The whole, saying Joe Biden put him in prison unfairly and all that, that's a smokescreen because, again, he can't come out and say it, hey, guys, I pardoned this guy so that we can win an election down there. He can't do that because that's interfering in a foreign election, which, we blow a gasket over here when people interfere in our elections, so that would be kind of hypocritical. So that's what I got out of that situation. And I just figured I'd bring that to you guys because everybody online, I got people. I'm arguing with people online. They're telling me he's getting a kickback from the guy because the guy was a drug kingpin. I was arguing with a guy yesterday, and he's like, "Yeah, he's probably getting like $20 million." And I said, "Man, Trump's a billionaire, man." I said, "Do you understand? Like, that's nothing to him. Kickbacks, none of that. Like that's like pennies to somebody like Trump. None of that matters, okay? It's just geopolitics. It's trying to keep good, solid neighbors next to us, geographically. That way we can trade. We don't have foreign influence on our borders. That's what it is. Russia just went to war with Ukraine over that, right? I mean, you got to call it what it is. That's why Russia invaded Ukraine, because of getting into the whole foreign influence stuff. Not saying it was right, but that's what they did. So obviously we're in that same type of boat. Like, you're not going to come to Mexico, Mexico's not going to buddy up with China, or nobody on our southern border, nobody in the South or Central America is going to do that. We're not going to allow it. Okay, so we're going to do whatever it takes to get pro-American leaders so that they all want to work with us to enrich our country. That's geopolitics. A little bit dirty. It can get real dirty, actually, because sometimes if you don't get the result you want, you don't get the leader you want, the next move is to fund opposition groups down there, guerrilla groups, groups to overthrow them, stuff like that. That happens quite often as well. But so moving on. So the narco boats that were sinking off the coast, right? I've supported this from the beginning. I support it now. Okay. Obviously there's a bunch of people crying and screaming online about it, but they're all weak, soft people who really just don't have the guts to defend our country in the way it needs to be defended. I don't care what they say. That's what it comes down to. Those are the same people, who, they don't want the death penalty when some guy rapes a bunch of kids or kills a bunch of people. And those are the same people saying the death penalty is inhumane, that he should spend the rest of his life in prison. Like, no, man. There's a point where you have to draw a line and say, look, we're going to fix this problem, or we're going to kill over it. We're going to fix it. Like, it's going to get fixed. Stop with all we're going to take them to court. They get their day in court. No, they don't. They don't. They're drug runners. Those are drug boats 100%. Look, I grew up in South Florida. You know what I mean? My hobbies when I was a kid was fishing. We went to the beach at least. Sometimes we'd fish overnight, at least, I don't know, once or twice a week, right? I've sat on the beach and watched the cops chase in drug boats coming into port. I've seen drug boats coming down a neighborhood canal at like 30 miles an hour running from the cops. I was sitting on a dock fishing one time in a cigarette boat, like 40-footer, blew down this canal right in front of me, getting chased by a helicopter. So I know what drug boats look like. Those are drug boats, right? I mean, you got, 3 to 4 150 horsepower engines on them. Fishing boats don't usually run like that. I was arguing with a lady the other day. She's telling me all those blue barrels are full of fish. I'm like, come on, lady. Like, it's just people that don't know anything. They don't know anything, so they just want to argue because they hate Trump, right? And it's insane. So they're definitely drug boats. There's no doubt about that, okay? Now, are some of those guys driving those boats fishermen? Probably so. But when they're driving a drug boat, they're a drug runner, and that's the difference, okay? You take your own responsibility for stuff, and that's what's going to happen. So anyways, we're sinking them. I think we've killed like 85 people already. And to me, man, look, it's a tough way to do things, but you got to send that message. You have to. Like, we can't stop them with the courts. That doesn't work. They continue to run them constantly. Don't care. They don't care about going to prison. They don't care about none of that stuff. But they care about dying, and that's a fact. That's the same with criminals, man. That's why I'm a proponent of the death penalty. A lot of criminals don't care about going to prison. They don't care about doing 30 years because their lives suck anyways. So it doesn't bother them. But guess what? They care about dying. So I believe that that's the greatest deterrent. I do. And it is sad that some people gonna have to get caught up in that. But you know what, man? We're losing 100,000 people a year to fentanyl overdoses and drug type stuff. So guess what? That's what happens, man. They've killed 100,000. We've killed 85. So at this point in time, we owe them a lot. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just crazy. Like, it's very odd because you think that most people think like you do. You think, oh man, like, hey, we're knocking out all these drug dealers. We're gonna take America back. We're gonna get all these people off drugs and stuff like that. And then you realize 30% of our population doesn't support that. And you're thinking to yourself, like, logically, like, why do you not support that? And people are like, oh, it's murder. It's this, it's that. You're killing narco terrorists. Okay. It's no different than killing a guy that walks into a store with a suicide bomb strapped on himself and kills 5 or 10 people. There's no difference, because if you're running a boat with, I don't know, 1,000 pounds of cocaine with fentanyl or whatever you're running, there's death on that boat. People are going to die from those drugs. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's a drug addict or just some recreational user that got the wrong stuff or took too much. People are going to die from that, and we have to start looking at it that way. We can't just feel sorry for these traffickers. That's just not the way to do it. And I think as time goes on, if we keep bombing these boats, sinking them, and killing the smugglers, I think what's going to happen is it's going to get so risky for them. It'll never stop, but I think it'll get so risky for them that it's going to cut it way down. They're going to look for other avenues. Maybe they'll start sticking them in shipping containers on the big ships, stuff like that. And we'll always have to combat that as well. Maybe flying them over in little planes or whatever, but then we just shoot the plane down. Like, we should treat it like hostile combatants. And the funny thing is, I did a podcast a while back talking about this, because as soon as Trump got in office, he designated drug cartels as foreign terrorist groups. And I knew the law stated that now he would be allowed to use the military against them, because, see, for regular crimes within our waters and the United States, we can only use police for that. But for terrorists, we can use the military. So when he designated them as terrorists, now we can use the military on them, which is the full force of everything we have. Which, if you're a drug smuggler or a cartel member, that's scary. That's real scary. Because the truth is, I feel like once this, the boat stuff dies down, I think Trump's going to start drone bombing these people on land, taking out their factories. How's the Democrats how are they going to defend that? How are they going to defend that? And there they go again, coming down on the wrong side of everything all the time. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, man. It's actually like, I always thought it was some kind of political strategy, but I'm really just starting to think it's some type of real sickness, like always siding with the criminals. You know what I mean? Like, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. I don't know who advises these people. Maybe they all think the same way. I don't get it, but it's crazy how they always side with the criminals. You got a bunch of people rioting in a town, and you go, oh man, they're going to throw all them people in jail. Next thing you know, you got the Democrats on TV talking about it was a peaceful protest and that the rioters are just angry. They're out. I remember AOC one time was saying, yeah, people were breaking in stores trying to steal food. And like, you're watching these people run off with TVs and shoes, and you're like, there's no food. But it's just the way they think, man. It's always, the criminal. Ooh, they came up, they had a bad background. They're talking about these fishermen. Oh, they're just poor fishermen. They might be. And maybe they're trying to make some dope money. But hey, man, that's too bad. They made the choice. They got to pay for it. But anyways, guys, it's good to be back. I'll talk to you soon. I hope you like my video. This is Eddie from Studio 321. Have a good night.